Hopefully it'll work on my computer. Anyway, oh, you have to love technology. Fun. Did everyone have a nice long weekend? I ate a ridiculous number of cookies. I thought of you. I almost ate one for each of you. Right? It was. I was all over one of them, right? So you're like, how many are there? There were 17 of you enrolled at the time. I had 14. I was close. I tried. I tried. So three of you, I'm so sorry, right? It's not over yet, though. I still have more at home. So I just didn't do it all in one week. I hope you all had a nice break. It feels weird. It feels like a long time since I've seen you, right? And I see you today, and then I get to say have another nice long or not long weekend. Yes.
Just probably user error.
I know.
So when I take the PowerPoint
Yeah.
from the notes and I open it up to like look at it or print at it, for some reason, like this one's okay.
Yeah.
The slide before, it cuts off at sexual pleasure as, and I don't know what's underneath.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I can try and look at it with you after if you want. Like we can see if we can figure it out. I'm assuming it's sometimes if you download it, it helps like give it more integrity as a file. So maybe give that a shot. And they're up there, but yeah, sometimes it's nice to have them as a separate file. So sometimes when you download it, it keeps the integrity of the file. Sure. So we'll pick up where we left off, and then I have a really interesting like part of a documentary to play for you today. Just a couple more thoughts and then we'll get there. But we ended here, right, talking about the bicycle, which we'll come back to today, and the corset and so on. So just kind of one more, one more thought here related to kind of early America, and then we'll get into that documentary will be up to our time. The Puritans and the colonies. So when you think of the Puritans, do you think of like progressive or do you think of like really restricted? Restricted, right? Like I always think of oh my gosh, The Crucible, right? My partner would have killed me for forgetting that title of that book, right? The Crucible, which is English teacher. So at that time, right, if we're looking at the Puritans and the colonies, really severe sanctions for any kind of sexual transgression, right? If you cheated on a partner, and you're only having sex within a marriage, of course, but if you cheated on a partner, it would kill you, right? You'd be put to death, right? That's how serious it was to do things like adultery, right? That whole book, The Crucible, being a lot about that whole storyline. But they did have a progressive thought and idea. And this is comical now, but at the time, this was so progressive. It was called bundling. Okay? So if you were about to get married to someone, what if we allow you to share a bed with each other in preparation for marriage, but we remove the temptation of any kind of like sexual interaction by bundling you? So two options. We put a wooden board in the middle of the bed, right? As if you couldn't just climb over that very easily, right? But no, right? The wooden board, or we literally sewed you into a sack. That was the more common practice. We took the man and we sewed him into a burlap sack for the night so that he wouldn't be able to touch his bride to be. I have an example of this. Was so excited to find an example of this. Old movie, The Patriot, with Heath Ledger. And it has an example of this in there of what this could look like at the time. So let me play this for you. Not sleep together, right? And this was thought to be a really, really progressive practice. And obviously people found ways around it. But the Puritans tended to be very, very like tight with their rules around sexuality, especially outside of a marriage. Moving forward a little bit, like the 1700s and 1800s, the influx of like slaves from Africa also changed some of the policies and ideas related to sexuality and marriage, specifically around marriage between people of different races, a lot of like rules and restrictions related to that. The medical model came into a big focus in the 1800s. We started talking about social hygiene for the first time, right? An idea around like sexual health. And you see this persisting into the 1900s, that people were developing diseases from having sex with each other. And we were noticing that for the first time. So coming up with like hygiene ideas. We'll talk about prophylactic stations in the documentary where people would go like wash themselves after sex for the first time. This idea of like maintaining health in some way. So we see kind of like restricted, a little bit more progressive. Again, we tended to kind of go that way throughout history, kind of like back and forth and back and forth. And then as we get into a little bit closer to now, we don't need to watch that again. 20th century sexuality is where we kind of pick up with the documentary I want to show you, where we get a lot more into kind of getting closer to today. So the documentary is going to take us up to right about 2000, like the kind of getting through like the bicycle in the 20s and the 30s and the 40s and so on, all the way up to like late 1990s, I believe, if I remember correctly. So I want to play this for you. Don't necessarily need to take notes, just definitely pay attention. Let me see if I can get this to like documentary getting us up to now, right? And again, the bicycle was a threat, the automobile was a threat, where we had all these like scandalous threats to sexuality, a lot of changes too, right? And I wrote this term up here, they used it a few times, prophylactics or like prophylactic stations. A prophylactic is an advanced guard. So it was something that was used to like fend off a disease. So something like hygiene or maybe a condom at the time, right? And this became really popular during some of the war time, right? With these prophylactic measures, but just a lot of interesting things. We'll talk more about Kinsey, right? They mentioned Kinsey and the Kinsey reports. We'll talk about him in chapter 2 a little bit more. I love that. And you'll see the same thing like echoed, right? That people didn't know what different parts of the body were. Like, oh, yes, the clitoris is a statue in Greece, right? Like it wasn't even known that that was a part of female anatomy, right? So we'll talk a lot about that a little bit more in chapter 2, but just kind of getting us up to now, the role of AIDS, right, played a big prominent kind of like backward movement. We have the development of the internet, right? I have to love the early chat rooms and things that they showed you on there, kind of pushing us forward. So a lot of like forward, backward, as we went through like the 1900s. Any like comments or thoughts or questions or anything from stuff that came up in the documentary? Anything at all before we keep going? Yeah.
When you learn about history, you never mention that part,
Right.
so you just don't think about it.
Yeah, right. That it played a role in sexuality, right? Like, yeah, and how it led to the development of like the pinup girl,
Yeah.
right? And like some of these new notions, like men went overseas, you know, traditionally men, women went overseas as well, but mostly men going overseas and then learning new things in foreign cultures that they brought back. And the baby boom, right? That came afterward. Everyone came back and the babies, right? 9 months later. So like war has played a huge role in sexuality over time, right? And we don't talk about it a lot. And then obviously the sexual revolution and some of those things as well. They mentioned something in there that I want to highlight a little bit more as well. Let's see, let me get to that slide here. They talked about the role of like the media just a little bit, but they showed it in there and I want to just show it to you one more time. There was a movie that came out called The Kiss, right? And they brought it up in the documentary. Now, The Kiss was considered like scandalous. Like people fainted, people lined up, as they said, spent nickel after nickel. Can you imagine if it was only a nickel to go to a movie, right? Like my kids and I went to see Avatar, and like for the 5 of us plus popcorn, it was way more than a nickel, right? I wish. But this movie, right, just made people so upset. So one of the reviews said the spectacle of the prolonged pasturing on each other's lips was beastly enough in life size on the stage, but magnified to gargantuan proportions and was absolutely disgusting, right? That was a review from the time. Now they showed it to you in there, but I want to show this to you one more time. I think more than anything, it's just really awkward. Like, I don't know why these two stayed the way that they did for as long as they did, but it's incredibly awkward the way that they, I can hear my partner being like, get out of my face, right? Like the two of them are just like right here. And then they kiss, right? So this came out in 1896. Okay, so really old, but this was dramatically disgusting at the time. Let me pause this and I'll play it for you. Back like 100 years or so, like contrast that to anything that you would see now, right? Like I always think of like Game of Thrones, like which was scandalous when that came out, like all the sexuality in there, or I don't know, maybe like 50 Shades of Grey if we go back 10 years, right? Any of that compared to this, right? But the media throughout time has played a really big role in like normalizing what is acceptable, what we can handle or not handle. And we're always pushing the envelope a little bit, right? Whether it's on TV or in movies or in advertising and magazines. Of course, the internet played a huge role as well in like what we normalize and what we have access to. So over time, as we have developed more and more media, right, it tends to shape what we think of as normal. And I was trying to think of what could be scandalous now. I was trying to think of something we watched recently that's scandalous, but I don't know, it's also normalized now, right, compared to maybe what it was when Game of Thrones came out. It was like everyone was so upset about how much sexuality in there, like all the 50 Shades movies that came out. But we see advertising a lot uses sex. We'll talk about that more at the end of the semester, how we tend to use sex to get your attention, get you excited about a product. And then, as I mentioned, of course, like the internet and all that as well. So where we will go from here, now that we've kind of like gone through a little bit, oh, one more time, awkwardness. No, just kidding, right? Right? I'm like, I'd rather not. Where we'll go from here in the next chapter, chapter 2 is all about research in sexuality. So again, we'll talk a little bit about Kinsey and some of the people who have influenced what we know now. You're also going to be doing a little bit of your own research. This tends to be one of my favorite things that we do in here, but I'd love you over the weekend, all right, since I don't see you till Monday. Think about if you could research anything related to human sexuality. Like if you wanted to ask a question or two related to sexuality, what would you want to know? You don't have to write anything down. Just start thinking about it. Like, would you want to know, like, what shapes partners that people pick? How often people have sex? You want to know about like opinions related to gender or orientation? Like, what would you want to know? Right? Think about it a little bit, and then we'll revisit that when I see you on Monday. So what I'll do with our kind of ending time here, I printed out a new roster this morning. So this is updated as of like 9:45 this morning. So if your name isn't on here, then you're not in the class. I want to leave a few minutes for a few people who needed codes and things to come chat with me. So I'll go through this one more time, and I just printed this. So if I forgot to mark that you go by something else, let me know. And if I keep mispronouncing your name, correct me. But we'll probably be done a few minutes early here. You have a few extra minutes. Let's see. Madison here. Here. Okay. Becca here. Eel here. Noah here. Christopher here. Mo or Wally. Micah here. Ryan here. Heidi here. Devin here. Taruni here. Lauren here. Stacy here. Trisha here. Jacob, Heather, here, Star, here, and Nicholas. Here. Okay, if I didn't call your name, then I don't have you on the roster. So come check in with me. A few of you who are trying to add, you can come check in with me. Otherwise, have another wonderful weekend. Those of you who I skipped on the cookies, I'll cover you in the next couple of days, right? So I'll see you all on Monday.